In the vast, frigid reaches beyond the asteroid belt, past the gas giant Jupiter, lies a planet with radiant rings and dozens of mysterious moons, Saturn, a world of majesty, storms, and secrets. And among Saturn's family of moons, one stands out for reasons that are as improbable as they are profound. Its name is Enceladus, a small, icy orb only 500 kilometers in diameter. You could walk its entire circumference in less than a week. Yet despite its size, Enceladus may be one of the most promising places in the entire solar system to search for extraterrestrial life. But Enceladus wasn't always a star of planetary science. Before the early 2000s, it was barely more than a name, a distant, cold moon known only from blurry images and indirect observations. In mythology, Enceladus was a giant, buried beneath Mount Etna, who shook the earth in fits of rage. It's a fitting metaphor, because beneath this moon's serene, icy crust lies a turbulent and active world, one capable of breathing, bursting, and beckoning us with towering geysers that defy the very laws of what a frozen moon should be. The transformation in our understanding of Enceladus began with one of the most successful space missions in history, Cassini-Huygens. Launched in 1997, Cassini spent nearly 2 decades exploring the Saturnian system, and in doing so, it rewrote the textbooks of planetary science. But perhaps its most astonishing revelation came not from Saturn itself, but from this small, overlooked moon. During multiple flybys, Cassini's instruments detected something extraordinary. Near Enceladus's south pole, thermal readings revealed anomalous warmth, far too much heat for a body without an atmosphere, without tectonics, and without sunlight. The images told an even more dramatic story. Plumes of water vapor erupting from surface fractures, shooting over 100 kilometers into space. These were geysers, not just small puffs of gas, but vast fountains ejecting ice, salt, and organic compounds directly from the moon's interior. Here, in the frozen blackness, was a world alive with geological activity. A moon that should have been quiet, dead, and dormant was instead vibrant, dynamic, and open, not only to space, but to exploration. At the heart of this activity are the so-called tiger stripes, long, parallel fissures etched into Enceladus's southern hemisphere. These fractures are the source of the geysers. Cassini flew through them, literally. During close encounters, the spacecraft passed directly through the erupting plumes, allowing its instruments to taste the ejected material. What they found was stunning. Water vapor laced with salts, ammonia, methane, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and a wide array of organic molecules, some simple, others complex. Some of these organics, carbon chains, nitrogen compounds, are the very molecules necessary for the chemistry of life. But how could such chemistry exist here, on an icy moon so far from the sun? The answer lies beneath the surface. The geysers, it turns out, are not just erupting from cracks in the ice. They are venting material directly from a global ocean, trapped beneath an icy shell that may be 20 to 30 kilometers thick. Enceladus, despite its small size, holds a vast body of liquid water, comparable in volume to Lake Superior or even Earth's own oceans. This ocean is in direct contact with the moon's rocky core, and it's heated not by sunlight, but by tidal forces, the powerful push and pull of Saturn's gravity, which kneads Enceladus like a ball of dough, generating internal friction and heat. This tidal heating provides the energy. The ocean provides the medium. The core, rich in silicate rock, supplies the necessary minerals. And the chemistry? That's what makes Enceladus so intriguing. On Earth, similar environments, hydrothermal vents deep in the ocean, far from sunlight, are teeming with life. Tube worms, extremophile bacteria, and entire ecosystems thrive in the dark, nourished not by photosynthesis, but by chemosynthesis, the ability to derive energy from the oxidation of chemicals like hydrogen and methane. Enceladus appears to have everything needed for such life to exist: energy, water, organic chemistry, a source of minerals, stability over time. And we've already been given the rarest of opportunities: samples. The plumes are nature's own delivery system, spaceborne pipelines from the depths of an alien ocean. They offer a direct, accessible, and non-invasive way to study an environment that would otherwise be sealed beneath kilometers of ice. But we've only scratched the surface. The geysers of Enceladus are variable. They pulse, they shift, they ebb and surge with the moon's orbit, growing stronger when Enceladus is farthest from Saturn and weaker when it is closest, confirming the role of tidal stresses in opening and closing the vents. Some plumes appear to turn on and off entirely, suggesting a highly dynamic interior, one with complex fluid dynamics, pressure changes, and potentially even subsurface currents. And then there's the age of the surface. Most of Enceladus is brilliantly white, the brightest surface in the solar system. This isn't just because of fresh ice. It's because of continual resurfacing. The South Pole is almost free of impact craters, meaning it is geologically young, perhaps only a few million years old. In planetary terms, that's yesterday. This moon is not just active, it's still evolving. So where do we go from here? The success of Cassini has sparked a renewed call to return to Enceladus, not just to observe, but to search. Multiple mission concepts are now under review: orbiters, plume samplers, even landers. One proposal, the Enceladus Orbolander, would both orbit and eventually land, using state-of-the-art instruments to detect biosignatures, amino acids, and even signs of metabolic activity in the plume particles. Unlike missions to Europa, which require drilling into a thick crust, Enceladus invites us to fly through its ocean. No digging, no waiting. The samples are already in the sky. If we find even the faintest hint of biological activity in Enceladus's plumes, a distinctive pattern of amino acids, a repeating molecule, a membrane-like structure, it will mark one of the greatest discoveries in the history of science: life beyond Earth, arising independently in a different environment. And if we do not, that too tells us something. It tells us about the boundaries of habitability, about the conditions under which life does and does not emerge. It sharpens the questions we ask of Mars, of Europa, of Titan, and of the thousands of exoplanets now known to orbit distant stars. Because Enceladus teaches us a profound lesson: that life may not require Earth-like conditions. It may not need continents or sunlight or air. It may thrive in oceans beneath ice, in heat born of gravity, in chemistry hidden far from the stars. We are beginning to realize that such worlds are not rare. In fact, icy ocean worlds may outnumber rocky, Earth-like planets throughout the galaxy. And if life can arise in a place like Enceladus, it may be common, not in spite of the cold and the dark, but because of them. And so, as we look deeper into the solar system and further out into the galaxy, we carry with us a message from a distant moon, a world no bigger than England, a moon with plumes that shine against the blackness, a tiny body that has shaken the foundations of how we understand life, water, and the nature of planets themselves. Enceladus is not just a moon. It is a key to the deep past, to the hidden present, and to the question that defines our place in the universe. Are we alone? Perhaps Enceladus already knows.